6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Coming soon. Snake River Manufacturing is developing a revolutionary new way to design and build a custom kayak trailer. This modular design lets you customize your trailer one piece at a time, allowing you to grow as you go.
Looking for unbeatable customer service and a kayak shop that truly cares? At No Bad Days Kayak, Forrest and his team treat every customer like family. With unmatched attention to detail, they'll even ship your dream kayak anywhere in the U.S. No stress, no hassle, no bad days. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for episode 14 of the Kayak Cafe. This episode is brought to you by Snake River Manufacturing, No Bad Days Kayak, and Vibe Kayaks. With Vibe, whether you're chasing the perfect catch or just craving some peace of mind on the water, Vibe Kayaks is your ride to freedom, built for all skill levels at any water. Fresh, salty, or somewhere in between, Vibe delivers premium kayak performance without the drama or cost. From the ultra versatile Shearwater 125 to the throw and go agility of the Makana 100 to ultra portable inflatables, every Vibe kayak is crafted to elevate your experience on the water. So gear up, get out there, and do what you do. All right. So, like I say, this episode is brought to you by Snake River Manufacturing. If you have an opportunity, go out and check out what Steve has going on at snakerivermanufacturing.us, and you will be amazed at the trailers that he is putting together that are going to be flat packed and modular. If you're looking to get a kayak and you just don't know where to get it from, check out Forrest at No Bad Days Kayak. Those guys are awesome people. Forrest is a great person with a great group of employees that can ship a kayak almost anywhere in the U.S. Also, if you're looking for a sleek kayak, check out Vibe Kayaks. They have a great assortment of options to cover almost anything you need. So, all right. So, episode 14, we have Chancy Cotton. He is a professional angler. He is a great individual who is versed in both the tournament series for boat as well as kayaks, and he's done some amazing things. So, we're going to bring him in and we're going to talk to him right now. Hello, Chancy.
How you doing, Roy?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you coming on. This is going to be recorded a day early because my son is turning 18 tomorrow, and I don't want to miss that.
Happy birthday to him.
I will let him know. Appreciate that. Awesome. So for those that don't know you, Chancy, could you give them like a brief introduction as to who you are and what you've done?
Yeah, I grew up fishing with my dad when I was about 6 years old, and he taught me how to fish along with my grandpa down at a pond. But I mainly fished out of the boat with my dad, and we would go to the lake. And this was in Tennessee, and we'd go to the lake at Norris Lake. So I grew up fishing that lake a lot. And when I grew up and left the house, I joined the Army, and I was in the Army for about 21 years, and I retired just a few years back. So that's pretty much what I've done my whole life. Pretty much is this fish in the Army, but now I work for Texas Parks and Wildlife now, and I absolutely love that job. So yeah, that's about my story. So all I do on my free time is to go fishing either in my boat or in the kayak, and I fish a lot of tournaments, and I really enjoy doing what I do. So
Beautiful. Thank you for your service.
I appreciate it.
So with your background in the military, and I imagine you've been to many, many places around the world. Are there any memorable places that you've been to or things that you've done?
There is two spots that are really memorable to me as far as fishing goes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was I actually got to fish on the Sea of Galilee when I was there on one of my missions with the army. So I got to go into Israel, and we took a trip, and then I went up there and got to fish on the Sea of Galilee the old traditional way with the netting, not
Oh,
with a fishing pole. So it was throwing the net over the side of the boat and then pulling it in, and just like they would back in the day to eat fish, you know. So that was kind of cool. And the other one was we did a trip and did a convoy to Saddam's palace in the Green Zone. So
mhm.
I got to actually fish around the palace and caught carp. But if you know anything about that carp, there's a dark secret that a lot of people don't know, and that's uh, I'll leave that up to the viewers to go check out that dark secret, because I don't want to say that in
Yeah,
the live podcast. So yeah, but
I'm
yeah,
gonna have to Google that myself.
those carp were actually meant to do something. So yeah,
Defensive carp. I gotta Google that.
yeah.
So when you were in the Sea of Galilee doing the net fishing, which sounds extremely uh, amazing to get like back to the I guess the biblical way of fishing. Did
Yep.
you catch anything when you did that?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay.
But when that trip was over, we actually went to where you actually get baptized right there at the River of Jordan, and we sat
Hmm.
down and ate fish from the Sea of Galilee there. So it was actually a really cool experience, and I was really humbled to do that. So
Hmm. So beyond those two, are there any other like memorable moments that you have from fishing? Because I know that, like we said, you've done a lot of boat tournaments and you've done a lot of kayak tournaments. Are there any like moments that really stick out that are memorable?
oh, there's so many. Oh man, you put me on the spot.
Hmm.
Uh, there was a moment this past weekend
Hmm.
that was really kind of scary. Actually, it's a ghost story, and I was fishing out of the kayak, and this was for Bass Nation out
Hmm.
on Lake Brownwood this past weekend. And when I was fishing, there was nothing around me, no boats, no people, no houses, nothing except trees, grass, and the water.
Hmm.
And it sounded like right behind me on the back of the kayak that a little girl was laughing. And I got how scared I was on video. So I haven't released that yet on video, but I'm going to
Wow.
be posting that on YouTube soon. But it scared the ever living crap out of me, because it sounded like an 11-year-old girl, about a teenage girl, laughing very loudly. And I started looking around, and nothing,
Yeah.
absolutely nothing. But today I actually looked it up on the internet.
Hmm.
Because I got curious what drownings happen at Lake Brownwood, and I found a story that this little girl drowned there, and that she laughs, and she hides behind trees, and people have seen her. Yeah,
That's not a lake I'm going
that's
to go to.
it's really scary. Like I got goosebumps right now. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
that's how
what
scary it was.
I don't know what motor you have on your kayak, but it's not fast enough to get away from that.
You know what? In my video, I turned on my GoPro, and I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to just keep fishing because I'm in a tournament and this is a lot of money going on right now. So I'm
Yeah,
just going to ignore what happened and just keep fishing.
break out your thermal and your EF meter. If you got something to say, I'm like, no, we're fishing. We're not
Yeah.
ghost hunting. Yeah, yeah. Those moments. I've been out in the woods and heard I've heard a fox one time, and it was making some noises, and I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
Freaked me out. I videoed it, and someone's like, "That's just a fox, man. You just you're losing your mind." I'm like, okay, but it was
That's
between me
funny.
and the truck, so
Yeah.
my imagination was like, I'm sleeping in this tree. So,
Mm-mm.
but
Yeah.
that's very interesting. So, um, with uh, with your years as in the kayak and with the boating, we've covered all of your um, your military travels, not all of them, some of them, your
Yep.
most memorables. Um, when you go fishing for um, the kayak series,
Okay.
do you find that it's more of a tighter knit community than the boat community? And the reason I'm asking that is because
Yeah.
I've been around some boaters and they're really tight lipped, and I've been around some kayak guys and they're like, "Come with me." So
Yeah.
do you find that to be the same experience for yourself?
Extremely. That is, you hit it the nail right on the head, man. It's extremely different because I've been in a lot of bass clubs, and
Hmm.
all those bass clubs have been boat tournaments. Um, and even in boat clubs, in bass clubs, you know, um, they don't talk to each other, even though you're friends with them.
Hmm.
They will not tell you what they're catching them on at
Right.
all. So example is like I'd be fishing kayak tournaments and you pass someone, you be courteous and go around them or
Hmm.
be like, hey, whatever. But they'll stop and be like, hey man, what you catching them on? And they'll tell you exactly what they're catching on during the tournament. And
Right.
and that's what I've seen is that there's more camaraderie in kayak fishing and in tournaments than there ever will be on boats. And I didn't know this until I actually got in a kayak.
Right.
And it blew my mind because I had that defensive shield up when I was in a boat and I come to kayak world and I'm like, dude, why you asking me what I'm throwing? I ain't gonna tell you. And when that person told me what they were throwing, I'm like, yeah, okay, you're lying. You're like, I don't
Right.
even believe you. And then he takes it out and shows it to me. I'm like, wow, this guy just told me what he's throwing and catching them on. It's a whole different ball game when you compare the two.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've always compared them to kayaks are more like motorcycle riders. Like it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you're on. I mean, you could pass somebody on a lifetime, they barely fit on it. You're waving at them, talking to them, like on the highway, you pass each
Mhm.
other, they always wave at each other, acknowledging each other. So
Yep.
with kayak fishing, I feel like it's the exact same way. Do you have any memorable moments that stick out to you in the kayak fishing world that sort of solidified the uh, camaraderie, because I know that myself, like I've had some things break and people have helped me out, like, and I've heard stories of people like day of tournaments, motors, batteries, swapping out. Have you had any incidents
Mm.
where people have like come together to make things happen?
Yeah, actually, I was fishing a all-star fishing tournament here in Texas, in Central Texas,
Hmm.
and there was some guys that their motor got killed by the battery because they forgot to charge it, and the other guys were towing them in, during the tournament to make sure they got back
Right.
to shore so they could take care of what they need to take care of, and then they came right back out. So I mean that during a boat tournament, yeah, forget it. They won't even come close to you to see what's wrong with you unless you're just waving them down like, "Hey, help me!" It's
Right. A nice little mayday.
yeah, pretty much.
So what kayak do you fish from?
I fished from the Ike edition, the Hobie PA
Hmm.
14. Yep. And it's a funny story that how I got that kayak because when I first wanted to get a kayak,
Hmm.
I was actually on the border mission when I was still in the army,
Hmm.
and I was on my way down to the border, um, and I stopped by No Bad Days Kayak, and I walked in there, and Forrest Green was in there, and
Hmm.
I said, I talked to him a little bit about myself, and I said, I wanted to get into kayak. He said, well, what are you looking for? I said, I want the best kayak you got. And he just looked at me. He's like, okay, but you just told me you fish out of a boat and you want to just get into a kayak. And I said, yeah, what's the best one out right now? He's like, I just got this Ike edition, this Hobie. He's like, Hobie? And of course,
Right.
everyone's heard of Hobie, the brand name, is so iconic. But at the time, I didn't know that Hobie made kayaks. I knew that they made surfboards and
Mhm.
catamarans, but I didn't know they made a kayak. And I was like, oh, let me check this out. So I bought the Ike edition right then and there, and I said I'll come back and pick it up when I get off the border. So
Heck yeah. Yeah, I've always liked the look of the Hobies. They are not a perfect fit for my body size and style,
yep.
because I went and tested one, and they asked me like, "What'd you think?" I was like, "It's not for me." And they're like, "What? What do you mean it's not for you?" Because I thought I was going to be able to buy my way into stability,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't built for me. Like I'm not saying it's a bad platform; it's just not a platform for me. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I do. Man, I wanted it to be so bad because I loved the Ike edition, that red, and it
Yep.
looked like a beast. So,
It's the
what?
only special edition that I know of that Hobie made, and they don't make it no more.
Right, and I think Ike switched over to another brand now.
He
So,
did. I
Wilderness.
Yeah, that's it. I seen
Mhm.
his video on it when he was super pumped and he was all excited to get it, and he's talking about decking it out and what he. Yeah, I seen that video.
He's always excited.
Yeah, he's always yelling.
I like it though. So, um, with your Hobie, do you have any motors or anything like that on it?
Yeah, I actually got the Texas Power Paddle.
Hmm.
Have you heard of that one?
I have.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, not a lot of people have heard of that one when I mentioned it to them. So yeah, I got that one, and it's really like secretive because no one knows that it's on my rudder.
Hmm.
So when I'm moving, everyone's like, "How you moving that fast? Are you pedaling that fast?" I'm like, "No, man, I got it on my rudder." So yeah, it really trips a lot of people out in the kayak world because you always see the motor on the back, but with that Texas Power Paddle, it's on the rudder, it's underneath.
Yeah, it's sort of the same with the. I use the Bixby, and the Bixby
Hmm.
can be either rudder or it can snap into the center, so you don't even see
Yep.
the outside.
Yep.
Now, is the Texas power, is that transferable from boat to boat?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, you can actually, well, you got to go on the website and put in what kayak that you have
Hmm.
so it matches up for that rudder.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the one thing that I liked about the Bixby was that I could have one motor system and
Mm,
different mounts for all of my kayaks
yep.
because I didn't want to buy um, the other ones that have all of the attachments and it just wouldn't swap easily. So
Yep.
cool.
I actually made a video on that on when I installed it. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's been like 2 years, something like that. Yeah, but I made a video on how to install it and stuff like that. So if
Yeah, I've
you ever
actually
get a
spoke to
chance
them.
to look that up.
They're pretty nice people there. I mean, we haven't really
Yep.
done a lot of communicating, but they have um, a nice website, nice offerings. It's
Mm,
pretty in the compact battery in the
in the
like the
case.
Pelican style case is really
Yep.
cool too. So awesome. Well, before we get into the midway questions here, do you have any major catches that you've made from the kayak during your tournaments? Anything that really jump out to you?
There was there was one that I was fishing the all-star fishing tournament on Lake Fayette.
Hmm.
And that's one of my actual favorite lakes. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a power plant lake.
Mm-mm.
And yeah, definitely look it up, Lake Fayette. And it's a power plant lake here in Central Texas. And went out there and fished that. And during that tournament, I caught a huge one. It was about 9 pounds. So I
Wow.
got it, reeled it in. I was super nervous, all shaking and stuff like this, and my nerves were just shocked because I was like, I can't believe I just got this during the tournament, and it's my PB. I was like, heck yeah! So I'm getting it on the board, about to take my picture for Tourney X,
Hmm.
and as soon as I'm about to take the snapshot, it jumps off the board
Oh,
and goes into the water, and I have a total meltdown. And I got this all on film, and it's just, I show it to people, and they just laugh. They just, it was a heartfelt moment of just pure meltdown. And I would have won the tournament with that fish, and had big fish too. So
Yeah, I caught a 5 pounder. I've only done a couple tournaments. I'm not a tournament guy, just because I don't. I love fishing. I'm not
yep,
the best fisherman, but I was in a tournament and I caught a 5 pounder and I did like a play by play. I was like, "Oh, I caught him, hooked him, got him. No, don't jump. No, 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 no." It was really comical watching the whole "don't
yeah,
jump, don't jump." And they're like, "Man, the fish can't understand you." I'm like, "Yeah, but hopefully
yeah,
someone who has some powers does." So awesome. So what we're gonna do now? I'm gonna break off and ask some questions
yeah,
that were entered. We're going to do it just a tad bit early,
yeah.
but everyone who entered a question gets entered into the Kayak Coffee giveaway. If you're looking for some awesome coffee, kayakcoffee.com has some great offerings, and there is a discount code, Cafe20, gets you 20% off their coffee. So, all right. Our first question comes from this is from Steve Burge. He said,
Yeah.
when you transition from recreational fishing, when you transition from recreational fishing, what was the hardest part about tournament fishing?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, that would have to be from when I was real young, because I didn't tournament fish until I became an adult. So, but I knew I wanted to do tournament fishing.
Hmm.
So that first step was actually going to a bass club. And that's how I started transitioning into tournament fishing, where I got that competitive streak. But my dad did that when I was younger, so I got to be introduced to that type lifestyle. So it was a very easy transition for me. But the hardest part was I couldn't fish for a good portion of my life because of the army. So
Hmm.
I couldn't do that until I got a little further in my career in the army.
Gotcha. He says, what is the difference between your recreational fishing setup and your tournament fishing setup?
Ooh, that that's a good one. Um, well, my boat tournament setup is I usually only have, I would say, 6 rods,
Hmm.
even though I have like 30 in the boat. I only usually get memorize it to about six, because I know, I usually pre-fish, so I know what they really want and where I should be fishing. So I slim it down to only 6 rods. But on the kayak, I usually only take 4 to 5.
Okay. And his last question was, is fishing just a job for you now?
No, I wish it was.
Mm.
I still go to work even though I'm retired from the army, and yeah, I fish every chance I get on the weekends. So
All right. This is from Philip Hudock. He is the
yeah,
owner of Four-Seven Lures. And he says, what do you see as the biggest advantage in kayak fishing? And what about boat fishing? Like, what do you see as advantage in both?
the advantage in kayak fishing is how stealthy everything can be when you shut off your sonar and you're just gliding in, especially in super shallow water.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, you got to think, to a fish, a boat looks like a whale coming at it. So it's going to be like, whoa, like, what is that? But with a kayak, you can literally just coast in there just from pedaling or using your motor. So, I mean, it's real stealthy.
And his other question, how do you feel about the competitive nature of kayak fishing specifically? It seems like people start kayak fishing and then move to boat fishing and never return. And you basically just did the opposite. You went,
Yep. I went backwards,
yeah.
and I I don't have an explanation for why I went backwards. My best guess is that, you know the kayak scene, especially during COVID, started building up a lot around these lakes here in Texas, and it it became so much that I was like literally dodging people out there on the lake with the boat, and I'm like, why don't I try this? So that's how I basically came into kayak. Yeah.
Awesome. So here's this is from David, and David said, "What was the moment you knew kayak fishing was more than just a hobby for you? Was there a specific catch, trip, or turning point that really locked it in?"
I think that the turning point for me is that I looked at the payouts during tournaments
Hmm.
and I started seeing a very similar payout scale from boats and from kayak. Even when I was fishing the Big Bass Tour,
Hmm.
here at Conroe with a boat, and TTZ here in a boat, and then the kayak trails are paying out the same. And it's just like, I mean, of course, your big tournaments and boats are paying extremely well, but for the most part, most boat tournaments and
Hmm.
kayak tournaments are almost neck to neck now.
Huh. That's a good answer. All right. He says your social media has grown a lot. What's been the biggest lesson you've learned about sharing your fishing and kayak journey online, and how has that changed the way you fish or create content? What's your go-to on the side of content creation? I don't know who this guy is, but it's a great answer, a great question.
um, I I would say having people watch me and then get back to me as
Hmm.
far as commenting and stuff like this. You know what? My first fan, I remember this. Okay, I was on Belton Lake here in Texas, and that was my home lake for a long time before I moved. But I was at the ramp, and I'm not going to say his name, but he came to me, and as we are about to fish a tournament in kayak, and I was putting the kayak in the water, and he said, "Are you fishing with cotton?" And it didn't dawn on me for a second. And I said, "Yeah, why? What's up?" And then I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. He's a fan."
Hmm.
He's like, "I've been watching you on YouTube." I'm like, wow. And that's when it hit me that I'm reaching people that really enjoy the sport, and that makes me happy. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been recognized, I think twice, and it was just very like, no, there's no way, there's no way you can know me.
And one person actually stopped me at the Bassmaster Classic and talked to me for a little bit. And I was really shocked on that one too. So it's kind of neat that I'm reaching people that I've never known.
Yeah, it's amazing the reach, especially YouTube. I mean, who knows? You could travel back to another country and then like, hey, I know you. Aren't you the guy that fished in Saddam's pond? No.
Yeah.
All right. He said, "What's one piece of gear besides the kayak that's made the biggest difference in your fishing game, and why?"
Hmm. Just in the kayak or boat? What was,
Um, well, I guess he says besides the kayak, so it could be either. Because I think the
hmm,
kayak changed your boat game a little bit. So,
one piece of gear? I would have to say choosing the right rod and reel
mm,
for the certain environment or lure that you're using is key. And and I think what I've realized when, especially between boat and kayak, is that I was using some of my rods from my boat
hmm,
in my kayak, and I was using 7.5, 7 foot rods. And what I realized, I was having a hard time actually setting the hook from a seated position in the kayak.
hmm,
And I thought about it over and over. I said, why am I having such a hard time setting this hook versus when I'm standing up? And I thought, wait a minute. Okay, it's not just that I need to stand up, which wasn't the case. What I needed to do is shorten my rods. So what I did is I bought brand new rods just for my kayak, and
hmm.
I got 6.5 and 6 and 9. So once I shortened those rods, I actually started my hook set went way up. And I took the action of the rod to mid level, not fast,
Hmm.
not heavy. I went to mid. And I'm telling you, my hook ratio went way up.
Nice. So selecting the proper gear.
Correct. Yep.
There you
That's
go.
it.
All right. So this is the last gentleman, Drew Haynes. He's the owner of Sonar Shield.
Okay.
He says, "What's the biggest adjustment you had to make when switching from kayak tournaments to boat tournaments, or vice versa?"
Oh, the gear. That would be the biggest thing because, I mean, you got everything in the kitchen sink on the boat. It's at your disposal. But in a
Hmm.
kayak, you know, one thing I learned in the Army because I was infantry. So infantry had to carry everything on their back walking.
Hmm.
And you got to sustain yourself for a week to a couple of weeks at a time. So you had to really pick your gear on what you're taking out to the field. So to me, that's no different on a kayak. So you have to slim it down as much as possible because the thing can only hold so much weight.
Right.
So picking your gear is probably the most crucial thing on a kayak versus a boat because a boat you're not worried about the weight. So
Right.
trying to find the correct stuff that you need on that kayak at that time of tournament fishing, fun fishing, whatever, that's the most crucial in cutting that weight.
He says, "Do you think kayak anglers are at a disadvantage or maybe even an advantage when it comes to reading water and finding fish compared to boat anglers?"
Okay, so it's more of a 50-50 on this one. A boat, you get across the lake easily and
Hmm.
find those fish very quickly like that. In a kayak, you can't go across the lake very quick. So you're going to have to study your maps, the fishing report. You're
Hmm.
going to have to really study before you know where you should put in on that lake during that time. And that's the most crucial thing is picking that spot where you're going to put in with the kayak and be more successful that way versus a boat where you could just run around and figure it out on the fly. So
Understandable. So, if you could change one rule or aspect of either a kayak or boat tournaments to make them more competitive or fair, what would it be? All right, we're gonna hold off on that one because we're gonna lead into these questions, and I think that's gonna come up as an answer. So,
I have the perfect answer for that question.
you know what? Just go ahead, say it.
Okay. So the perfect thing is that, you know, the kayak, we use Tourney X. A lot of us use Tourney X to
Hmm.
submit our fish and upload it and put it right back into the water. That's the best conservation thing there is for those bass. Well, on a bass boat during tournaments, a lot of people take them in to weigh. And it's fun to watch the tournament weigh in, bad for conservation. And I hate that. I can't stand that. And I wish boat would learn from the kayak world that we're using app, this Tourney X, to
Hmm.
submit the fish and put them right back where they need to be.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that was one of my questions I was going to get into. So, like, uh, how do the rules and formats between kayak tournaments and boat tournaments, how are they similar and how are they different? That's what was one of my next questions, which would have led into that. And um,
I
I
think
was
that's
gonna,
the biggest difference right
yeah,
there. It truly is.
and I've always wondered why, especially some people who fish offshore and they're pulling a fish from way down deep,
Yep.
throwing it in a
Yep.
live well, taking it in. Like you said, it's fun that way in,
Yep.
but I feel like it's really really hurting the fish population, especially
It
if
is.
they're on the bed. That
I've
fish is not
seen
going to make it back.
so, yeah, I've seen so many fish, not just, I've admit I've killed a few from the live well, that
Hmm.
didn't make it, but I've seen so many that have not made it. I mean, I'm talking about some big fish, like 6, 7 pounders not make it. And it just breaks my heart seeing that. And it's just, we could do better. We
Yeah.
truly can. As the fishing industry grows, we should already have moved past this and take care of fish better, you
Yeah,
know.
because I feel like most tournaments don't have the big budgets of the top dogs. The top dogs have everyone there with all of their tanks and
Hmm.
biologists, to make sure for a good release. But
Yep.
a regular backyard tournament or a lower level tournament, they don't have that. So you're going to have potential for more loss. So yeah, I agree. CPR is the way to go. The catch, photo, release,
Yep.
and send it on, or even the marshals on the boats would be another way
Hmm.
to catch it, weigh it, ship it on.
Yep.
So
Just like the MLF format, they're doing it like that
mhm.
too. So, I mean, that's a great format. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's a good stepping stone away from the weigh-ins.
Yep.
And even if you cut off the leaderboard and had a big show, everybody comes in and they give the big reveal at the end. That's another bonus as well to keep a live thing going, maybe. But so when you prepare for a kayak tournament versus a boat tournament, do you prepare mentally different, or
Y-
what is your game plan on that one?
Yeah, I actually do. I kind of touched on it a little bit. Like I said, like kayak, I'm really strategic on where I want to put in the kayak on the lake because, like I said, with a boat, I just take off, and just figure it out on the fly. But kayak, I've learned how to slow it down, prepare more, and be more strategic and kind of like a doctor with the scalpel, just be more precision. It's
Yes.
really helped me in my boating aspect in that way too. So yeah, it was a learning curve when I first got into kayak tournament and stuff like that because I was like, oh my gosh, what, like, why can't I just do this and this just like I do on the boat? And I was really getting frustrated, but I learned how to slow it down
Hmm.
and actually be more methodical.
Yeah, I would imagine the weather as well. Like with a boat, I mean, you can handle some rough stuff, maybe some heavy rain and whatever. But when it comes to the kayak, you also have to take that into account as well. Even if you're marginal wind, maybe not being out in the open.
Yep, exactly.
So, um, how does the limited mobility of a kayak affect your decision on um, where to put in? Like do you um, are you okay with putting in and doing like a 5 mile run, or do you try to get do you pull out and put back in at different locations down the line, or you stay in all day long?
I usually stay in all day long. I've never pulled the kayak out of the water to go to a different location. A prime example for this was
Hmm.
when I was just fishing Bass Nation at Lake Brownwood this past weekend. When I put in mid lake, and I already had everything thought out in my brain. Like I'm going straight across mid lake, and I'm going to the other side to this big straight flat that was super shallow because I already seen what the water temp was, and that was 63, 64. I was like, oh man, they're spawning right now. So I went straight across, and the rest of the guys, they took a right and went south.
Hmm.
And that should have thrown up red flags in my head. And I was like, wait a minute, why is 5 guys going south and I'm the only one going across, straight across? It didn't dawn on me till about midday when I was fishing the tournament when I haven't caught anything. I was like, now I realize the spawn, if you look at a lake during the spawn, all right,
Hmm.
it heats up from the bottom to the top first. So even though that water temp was 64 degrees when I went straight across mid lake, they're spawning in current spawn at the south end. And it didn't dawn on me till mid tournament. And I was just like, man, those guys had it figured out. And I totally missed the point.
Now, did you reposition south or?
By that time, I only had half of a battery left,
Mm.
and the wind was blowing almost 30 miles an hour. And
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, there's no way I could make it back. I'd have to beach it and hitch a ride back to the truck or something
right.
if I went south. So I just had to live with my decision at Mid Lake. And that's poor planning on my part, but it makes me think of that the next time I go fish another tournament or just go out fun fishing.
No, I haven't looked in a while, but with the Texas power paddle, do you have the ability to have a secondary battery?
Yes, all it is a cord that hooks up to the Pelican box, so I could interchange them if I needed to. If
Okay.
I bought another one.
Yeah, because I have several batteries for the Bixby. Because that's one of my fears. I don't fish any place that's less than 200 yards from the bank. Because
Yeah.
I'm a big guy. If I roll my kayak, there's going to be some land involved in getting back in. I know
Yeah.
that. So, but I have a couple batteries just in case one dies. So,
Yep. Actually, that's a good thought. Like you just got the wheels turning in my head. Like I should leave a second one in the truck so I could go back to it if I need to. Yeah, I appreciate that because that just got my wheels turning.
yeah, it's the two is one is none thing, right?
Yeah.
So with your kayak, I know you have the motor. What electronics do you have on the kayak, and are they the same as the electronics that are on the boat? Like, do they match, and
Yep.
do you swap them or?
Okay, so on my boat and on my kayak, I use Lowrance. I'm
Mhm.
Lowrance all the way. So on my boat, I've decked out everything. The whole network system on my boat is all Lowrance, even down to the speakers are all Lowrance. So I everything that I have integrated, I can use it on the screen for the ghost trolling motor on the
Mhm.
boat. I can send it to a location at the helm. So I love the integration system. Even it's not just Lowrance, but it's also Minn Kota and Humminbird. They all interconnect. So
Mhm.
even Garmin. So all of them do pretty much the same thing. It's just what you prefer. But I prefer Lowrance, and I actually hot swap them. My bow unit, I actually swapped that to my kayak. And it's a
Mhm.
9-inch HDS Live. So that's what I use on my kayak.
Do you use forward-facing sonar at all?
I do on my boat. Now, I'm I've been hesitant on making that jump to the kayak for one reason. When I'm fishing in the kayak, once I find them on the 2D and the side scan,
Mhm.
I actually turn my graph off.
Mm.
Totally turn it off. And I've actually learned that by turning the graph off, I'm actually catching more fish, believe it or not,
Hmm.
in my kayak because I'm more stealthier. I'm not pinging them constantly. They don't know I'm there, and I'm actually catching them a lot more than I when I am on my boat using active target.
That's interesting because I've heard some people say that they've watched them on live scope, and when they scan them, they just jump like something hit them, or they
Yep,
move.
I've
So,
seen it. Yep.
very interesting. So, um, with your setup, and you say you swap the electronics, and you
Hmm.
use the forward-facing sonar on the kayak.
No, on the boat, not
I'm
the
sorry,
kayak. Yep.
you don't use the forward-facing sonar on the kayak.
Yep.
Do you what what do you power them with? Because I know that you use the battery for the power paddle
Yep.
that's specific for that. What do you power your electronics with?
I actually power my electronics with one of my sponsors,
Hmm.
Z-Pro. Z-Pro is great battery. I love that battery. Um, what I actually did with my Z-Pro battery, I actually got their smallest battery, which is a 12 volt, 10 amp, something like that, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I got the smallest battery because I wanted to cut weight. because I want to be as fast as possible moving in the kayak. So what I did is that I got a solar panel
Mm-hmm.
and put it on the back of my kayak and rigged it to the battery. So when I'm out there, it constantly charges it through the solar power.
So when you're fishing, I know you have the motor, but do you have the pedal drive working as well? Like when you get where you're going, do you use your pedal drive or you strictly motor?
Once I get to where I'm going, I just do all pedal.
Okay. So when I know that tournaments are very rarely like right around the corner from you. When you go to a boat tournament versus a kayak tournament, do you find that the travel and lodging is different between the two?
Oh yeah, totally different because having that boat, even though I got a trailer for my kayak,
Mm-hmm.
the boat is just obviously so much bigger and it's
Right.
harder to turn around in certain areas. And I got to find a place to put that thing because it's taking up so much space. In my kayak trailer, I can maybe get away with like 2 or 3 spots when I park at a hotel or when I go to a state park. I could just sleep right there in my truck. It's totally different in the kayak.
Yeah, and I've also seen, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, with everyone who's worried about sharing information and stuff like that. But with kayaks, I've seen a lot of people like they'll get an Airbnb and like six guys will be in there just having the time of their life. It's
Yep.
it's it's such a different looking scenario where everyone's just hanging out, having fun, shooting the bull. Next
Yep.
morning they all go out and boom. Um, Another thing that I've noticed, and with boat tournaments, are they normally like a shotgun start? Everybody starts in the same place and goes, or are they going to where the lakes here you could put in like the kayaks?
That depends on the tournament director.
Hmm.
So most tournament directors that I've seen nowadays, they actually send you off one by one, but they try to eliminate that shotgun because
Hmm.
once they do that, it's so much wake and they don't want people running into each other. That's the way a lot of it used to be,
Hmm.
but I think a lot of people dialed that down now. When I was in my bass clubs for boat, we would actually get a hat and we'd mark numbers and we'd draw numbers out of the hat to see who would be going out first, and that's how we did it. So it made it fair that way.
Have you done any kayak tournaments that were launched from the same location?
Uh, yes, it wasn't more of a launch. It was more like, hey, you can launch at this time
Hmm.
and go to your locations, and then at this time you can put lines in because
Gotcha.
it takes so long to get to your spot. It usually is about a 30-minute delay, window. So
So, um, are there any other similarities between the kayaks and the boats when it comes to your check-ins? You know what I'm saying? Like I know with the boat, you got to be back at a certain time. So with a kayak tournament, um, are there any tournaments where you have to be back at the dock by a certain time, or is it normally just lines in?
usually just lines in,
Lines in.
and then once you get back to the ramp, they ask you pretty much to check in on Tourney X with the kayak. Say, hey, we want to make sure you're safe, you're back, because a lot of people don't know who you are or anything. So letting the tournament director know that you're back is the
Hmm.
biggest thing, and that's just for safety. That's not just kayak, that's not just boat. Being safe out in that water is the most crucial factor once you get away from that shore. Is just everything's always about safety.
Right. And wearing your life jacket.
Yep, exactly.
So, do you think that kayak fishing is getting more or less respect from the boating professional world? Do you think that
Ac-
they're
Actually, I think it's a huge spotlight recently here on kayaks because I mean, look, if you look at Christine Fisher, I mean, she
Hmm.
just went and bumped up to, boat from the kayak world where she made her basically her living in kayak, and now Bassmasters is looking at her in a whole different spotlight, and she's climbing up, and uh like people are putting a spotlight on KBF with Chad Hoover and stuff like that, and these big companies are really recognizing
Hmm.
there's a whole nother market in kayak versus just boat. And I think they seen that huge bump up during the pandemic when COVID was going on. Because I mean, if you just went down to, let's say, Bass Pro, everything was off the shelf. Well,
Right.
that can't be everybody in a boat because boats ain't selling.
Right. So where do you see the future of kayak fishing going? I mean, do you see it continuing to grow or?
I wouldn't doubt if MLF actually comes up with a kayak league. I really don't, because the way it's going, it's exploding. I don't know where it is in the rest of the United States, but
Hmm.
here in Texas, oh man, it's exploding. Especially because I believe one factor of this,
Hmm.
and it is the how expensive boats have gotten. Boats
Yes.
have gotten extremely expensive, over $100,000 now. Like, to me, that's a house.
Yes. Right. That's a chunk of money.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
so another thing that I think that would be really beneficial, and I know that Chad Hoover's done it, and I know that Mike McKinstry does it, but it's getting some airtime, some
Mhm.
some TV time for kayak fishing. I
Yep.
mean, a lot of people know about kayaks and they know about fishing from kayaks, but there's a huge difference between what you use and what someone who just went to Walmart and picked up a off the shelf rig.
Yep.
So um, do you think that at some point that the tournaments will be to the level of like bass, like the high dollar or MLF? You think they're going to be super big payouts?
Oh, yes. Extremely. That's coming. That's down the
Hmm.
pipeline. Because what I've seen, just like I said, everyone's turning to kayak
Hmm.
instead of boat because of the price. Well, those payouts are going to shift to kayak because everyone's going to be there. And that's why I think the kayak fishing is just it's exploding right now because of that. Because there's just a huge shift in everyone leaving boat to go to kayak just to get on the water and fish.
So here's a question to you. For the longest time, the Hobie was like the big girl on the block. It was
Yep.
a beast of a thing. Well, now there's bigger kayaks coming out.
Yep.
What are your opinions on where it's going to end? And I have come to the realization that the term kayak is it's a fluid it could be anything. If you could paddle it, at some point it's going to be called a kayak.
Yep.
Someone's going to jump in a John boat and he's got a kayak paddle. Now it's a kayak. So do you see things just keep getting bigger, or do you think that they're just going to basically level off and come back down to a paddling? Like, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, what do you foresee?
I foresee a lot of changes,
Hmm.
and changes won't stop. And I see it evolving to
Hmm.
whatever the imagination to get on the water and fish is, because it's just like your kayak, my
Hmm.
kayak. You're it's you go out there to the garage and you start changing things constantly and maneuvering things to where a better fit, better suit you on the water. And
Hmm.
that's no different from these companies that are making these kayaks. They're going to keep changing and evolving these things.
Hmm.
So the sky's the limit.
Right. Yeah, I figured the way when I saw the XTR come out or the Wilderness 128 Pro,
Yep.
I saw them both side by side. They're these beast of kayaks,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, well, looking at it, there's so many places to put things. There's such a huge weight limit. If you're kayak angling for a tournament, you could fit so much more on there. It could
Yep.
hold a bigger motor, So I think at some point when people get it and use it, they'll change their mind. But I don't know. So
Yep.
yeah, we're coming up on the hour point, and I appreciate you coming on and talking about all of the differences between boat tournaments and kayak tournaments. And is there anything that you want to shout out before we hop off?
Yeah, I would like to thank my sponsors, Monster Bass, Z Pro, and No Bad Days Kayak. Great sponsors. Love those guys. They've helped me along the way, and just had faith in what I was doing and let me do what I enjoy doing. And they just stuck by my side. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. I've had experiences with both Z Pro as well as No Bad Days, and they both been really good to me. Forrest has been a champion for a lot of things that I've done and a great sounding board. So, in my opinion, you have done well to get him as a sponsor. So
He's a great guy.
he is. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully this has been beneficial to somebody who's thinking about getting into kayak tournaments. And they can definitely see the difference between the two platforms. I think that we brought up some good information about the level of camaraderie between the two, and hopefully that'll shed a little bit of light on how lucky kayak anglers have it.
Yes.
And then we can go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and throw you in the background, and then I'll come back and finish up once I log out.
I appreciate it, Roy. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here. All right. That was episode 14 with Chauncey Cotton. Great individual. Has a plethora of knowledge on both platforms of kayak tournaments as well as boat tournaments. So it was great to pick his brain a little bit. If you get a chance, go check him out on social media and Fishing with Cotton. Check him out, Fishing with Cotton, and give him a follow because he's going to be growing, and you might want to grow with him. So if you guys are in the market for a Kayak Cafe Cup, if you go to Nico's Art Therapy on Facebook, they are doing the Kayak Coffee Cups, and all of the proceeds go to Nico and his art therapy. It helps him get back into doing what he likes to do. So kayakcoffee.com has also offered a code CAFE20 for 20% off coffee. They have a great selection, which I love to inhale every time I talk about them. So go give them a shout out. So thank you again for joining me, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.